Hello, and welcome back to HunterTuned. Today we're starting the video off by messing with the CRX a little bit. We actually broke this thing out. It's been sitting in my yard for like a month or so now, and we really haven't driven this car a whole lot. We've been busy with other stuff lately, and yeah, just figured I'd give you guys a quick update on the CRX. And it's still running, not the greatest, but it is running nonetheless. It has the B20 VTEC that we swapped in, and we had the rods and pistons laying around, and we didn't like ring it or anything like that. We just threw bearings in it, and the rods and pistons that were in my hatch when I had it turbocharged. So the ring gap is very large. This thing smokes like a chimney, and yeah, it still runs good. It like has good power and shit, but she's a smoker. So anyways, broke it out, and we're just gonna do a couple street rips for you guys, and kind of show you guys how this thing acts on the street. The only other thing too that the car is having issues with is the transmission. We put the B16 gear stack in the cable case, and the case actually doesn't have the snap ring that goes on top for the counter shaft to align with the main shaft. So that snap ring is actually not in this case, and it is causing the gears to not be 100% lined up perfectly. So the car doesn't like to go into gear a lot of the times at like high RPM, mainly like third and fourth. First and second is okay, but yeah, third is really tricky to get it in. But nonetheless, we're gonna pound on this thing quick. I'll pop the hood, guys, show you guys how she's doing here. It's just a B20V with those YCP 11.5-to-1 pistons. It has a Megan Racing 4-to-1 header and like a 2¼ inch exhaust, so it's pretty choked up. Has a cherry bomb on it. Yeah, it does. Mint. And then we just got like a 70 mil throttle on the stock intake there with a wide open intake. No filter. Filters are for girls.
Yeah. The best air filter that money can't buy.
Yep. That's what we run in here. Got Hasport mounts, and yeah, it's just basic junk. Needs boost or nitrous or K-swap. I would actually like to K-swap this car, and I would like to do a K-series in this thing, like a 12.5-to-1 or 13 or 14-to-1 K24 in this car. I think that would be super cool. So if you guys have any parts laying around and you want to see a K-swap, you know, feel free to send them in. Yeah. I mean, just because K-series stuff, I would gladly do it, but it's just extremely expensive, and I don't really have that kind of dough laying around. But I mean, K-Pro is like $1,000, and then there's like some other stuff that goes along with it. Mounts, axles, harness.
So if you look at Hunter's front tire, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we were gonna do a little flyby for you guys, or like some rips, but of course, right when I break the camera out to film on this car, it breaks. And this is another reason why we haven't been filming a lot of stuff with the CRX, is because, well, the damn factory crossmember traction bar dealie has broken on me like 4 different times, and I can't seem to keep it together. So like there's a little arm that comes off of this like crossmember traction bar thing, and it attaches to the control arms, and if you don't have one of those hooked up on a CRX, the wheel does what it did, as you guys saw. So I have to figure out a traction bar setup for this thing, and honestly, it just hasn't gotten a lot of my attention lately because it's just been kind of a pile. So I need to like upgrade a lot of stuff, but don't want to spend any money on it, so it's tough.
Fleet Farm traction bar?
Fleet Farm traction bar? Maybe in the future, I don't know, we'll see. So yeah, we gotta limp this thing back to the shop. Sorry guys. Alrighty guys, so we are actually back at the shop now, and we had to bust out a tune quick on a BMW. I've been tuning a couple of these things lately. This is another E30, and pretty much same turbo combo and everything, a little bit bigger motor on this one, and it's on MS3 Pro, and we just knocked the tune out. Me and Christian dialed it in, and fucking car runs awesome. I'm super happy with the outcome on that one. So that's good to go. I might start filming more stuff like this if you guys want to see like other cars on the channel, but this channel is mainly Hondas and LS stuff, so I don't know. Anyways, I did want to give a shout out to Jim. He was super great, or super nice to, he actually saw that when we went to the track the other day with the Mustang, and I mentioned that I needed a fire suit. He bought me a fire suit and sent it in to HunterTuned. So Jim actually sent a Race Quip fire suit, brand new, in the box here. And yeah, like now I have a fire suit. It's not just the jacket either. This is like a full-blown fire suit. Super awesome of him. I can't thank him enough. You guys are awesome. Yeah, crazy cool. I tried it on last night. It's pretty good. And yeah. Oh, the belt's strapped right now. Yeah. Whatever, yeah. So that's awesome. Now, because the track official last time we were there was like, oh, I'll let you borrow my fire jacket if you want, but no, I don't got to borrow anybody's. I have my own, so pretty happy with that. Just got to get my laptop and stuff out of this car, and we'll get it off of the dyno, and we'll be all dialed. The Mustang got a new windshield yesterday. Me, Michael, and Christian were working on it, and we added 2 braces into the center of the new windshield, and also the old windshield that was in the car was acrylic, and this is a polycarbonate window, so it still has a little bit of flex, but the polycarbonate is like almost unbreakable. Like it can bend and deform a whole bunch of ways, and it's not going to crack like the acrylic did on us. So we added the bracing, and we went with a different type of material on this window. And yeah, I don't have any trim pieces on the car. I don't have. If you guys have any Mustang window trim for the windshield, I would greatly appreciate if you guys would send that in, or I could buy it from you, or whatever. If anybody has some old Mustang windshield trim, I'd like to get some windshield trim on this thing. We also riveted this one in instead of just gluing it like the old one. But Mustang's good to go. We actually just took the valve cover off of it, and now we're going to be heading over to my buddy Jake's house, and he's actually going to be welding in a dash 10 bung on the one valve cover. And then after that, we're probably going to put the other dash 10 for the other valve cover somewhere in the oil cap, I would assume, because there's not really a whole lot of room on the other side, the passenger side of the valve cover, to run the valve cover bung. So we're going to see if we can just run it through the oil cap and see if we can make something work there. So we'll pick up in a little bit. Alrighty guys, so we actually went over to my buddy Jake's house, and we got a dash 10 bung welded onto my driver's side valve cover for the Mustang. We got that all done. We took that out to the shop. The guy came and picked up the BMW. Didn't really have the camera with me, so I didn't really film a lot of that stuff, so I apologize. But we did make it back to the house now, and we are going to be playing with Christian's car for the rest of the video here. This is my dad's CRV, by the way. Not Christian's car, but this thing should get a turbo, I think. It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, unless he puts the big old 31s, 32s on there.
Yeah, my dad actually just got a lift kit for this thing, so we might be putting a lift kit on the CRV. Maybe. We'll see. So anyways, you guys know that Michael's car dropped a valve on his single cam, and he is now building something else, and we got the CRX back to the shop, and I would like to maybe do something else with that too, something like K-Series swap, maybe, depending on if we can get some sponsors and stuff like that. I would like to, if some companies want to work with us. We want to get the purple car done too, the purple Civic. We've just been busy with the Mustang and, you know, some other stuff too, but the only thing holding me back with the purple car right now is I need a clutch. And I've been thinking about reaching out to Action Clutch, but I haven't yet because I hate reaching out to companies, but at the same time, I don't really want to spend the $600 or $700 it is on the Ironman clutch that they offer. It's a super single without something like making me buy it, you know what I mean? So I would like to reach out to them and see if they want to do a partial sponsorship with the channel and see how much their clutch can actually take, how fast we can go with it, all that kind of stuff, because if anywhere is a great place for testing, it's here at HunterTuned. I guarantee we'll put the clutch through its paces. I just want to see maybe if they'll work with me. Like I said, I don't know. And like I said, I hate asking for shit from companies, but at the same time, I would like to help other companies advertise, and I would like to help my wallet a little bit too. Not gonna lie, because I mean, money is, you know, money's tight. You know, it's tough to fucking build all these cars and, you know, do it on your own all the time. So anyways, back to the fucking moral of the story here and the video. Christian took Michael's Hondata out of Michael's car because Michael's car is like broken right now, and now because Christian raced his PVC Civic at the racetrack a bunch of times. And with Chrome, we didn't data log anything because the data logging on Chrome kind of sucks. And we couldn't really tell what Christian's car was doing when it was going down track. So we got to figure out what Christian's car is doing down track. And another good way to help with doing this and getting Christian's car dialed 100% is with Hondata. So he's switching his car over to Hondata S300. He's been running Chrome for a while, and it's been fine. It's been running good.
2 years.
2 years he's been running it, no problems. Everything's running good. But we are going to switch it over to the S300 so we can wire the wideband in. We can do that shit with Chrome too, but like I said, the data logging with Chrome just it doesn't give you like good layouts for like looking at the logs and stuff. So at least with the version I have.
Chrome's a little outdated.
Yeah, and it's just like not, it's not that great. It's great for like a basic car. I usually tell people like, if you're not racing, you just got a regular street car, nothing too crazy. Chrome works pretty good, and nobody's got, you don't got no problems with it. But anyways, we're putting his car on S300 for the fucking 10th time.
Well, for the first time.
Yeah, so he's got the computer. He doesn't have a base map made for it, and I was gonna go over what I'm gonna do to make his base map. So, you want to film, Christian?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have S300 pulled up. Now, what did you do, Christian, when you did the when you made your tune? Because Christian made a tune for it and it ran, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just grabbed the ignition table from like New Calibration, and then there was a supercharged Y7 with like 550cc injectors.
And you just grabbed it.
So I just grabbed the ignition tables from that, and then
How'd you just grab the ignition tables?
well, I did the fuel table too.
What do you mean?
So
If you just click, if you are on 1, 2, 1, 2, ignition 1, ignition 2, fuel 1, fuel 2, and you hit new calibration, and you pick whatever one, all of them are changed.
yeah, but I had already grabbed. I should have just done that, but I had already grabbed this kind of setup. It doesn't matter. So you go to new calibration, and then do that. And so I've kind of been messing around with just like cruising and getting into throttle and stuff like that.
Okay, well, anyways, we're going to start from scratch because that's what I do all the time.
Yeah.
We'll go to new calibration. I use the ITR map for like every car.
This is an ITR.
Yeah, I don't care. We use this fucking map for every car. I use the stock Integra Type R map. I don't know why. I just do. It seems to work okay. So we just pulled up the stock Integra Type R map, and we're going to go over some ignition shit here because everybody is like, oh my god, how do you tune ignition? And I'll tell you right now. We take our idle portion, and we're going to set it all at 16 degrees. Actually, we can set it at 18 degrees because we can theoretically add 2 degrees when we add E85. And Christian's car's on E85. So it depends on, some cars like to run with lower timing, some like to run with more timing. It all depends on the car and what it likes, and you kind of just got to know from experience on cars what they like. Sometimes I'll tune cars with less timing at idle so they run smoother. Sometimes I'll add more timing at idle, depending on what the car wants. It really just is dependent on the car. So anyways, that's for the idle portion. I'll just set it all at like 18 degrees. So anything below like 1100 RPM, you can set at that, because anything below 1100 RPM, you're not going to get into boost, and you're not going to pretty much see anything past, this 0 column here where it comes into boost. So just to make it simple, I just highlight the whole thing and set it all at 18. And then down here, the rest of the map here, we can automatically add 2 degrees usually to cruising if it's on E85. Sometimes you can get more aggressive with like, I didn't want to do that. Okay, so we did a fuck up. We can go over to edit, undo. Okay,
we did a
so we can just highlight all this and we can give it 2 degrees.
Add selected value.
Yeah, add 2. Add 2.
Boom.
And we can honestly give it more timing cruising around to get better gas mileage. A lot of times you can add a lot of timing in cruising on cars and setups that have E85 in them, especially a low compression setup like Christian's. We could probably run close to 50 degrees of ignition, but we're not gonna, just to not overcomplicate this setup. Like I said, we could do it just to get the car to burn the mixture a little bit better cruising, and it's not going to detonate or anything because it's like a fucking 7.5 to 1 motor.
Yeah.
It'll take a lot of timing. So what I usually do is I usually leave the low cam ignition map alone. So like this, we're on the #1 lightning bolt, which is the ignition map before VTEC. I usually leave it alone. I'll give it 2 degrees on the entire thing, and then we'll just kind of look here because he has a 3-bar map sensor. We're just playing with ignition right now. We didn't go into any parameters or anything. We're just doing the ignition quick. And you can see here at like wide open throttle, which is column 9 and 10. So these 2 columns here is going to be like right when you floor the car. And usually, basic rule of thumb is I usually give cars 28 degrees to start and then taper the timing out of them a degree per pound. And then give it a pound or give it a degree, you know, at a time until you reach peak power or peak torque or whatever. Hondas aren't as picky with ignition timing as some cars, I've noticed. Some, you know, most Hondas, if it's got anywhere in the ballpark range of timing, it'll be fine. But most of the time on single cams, you don't want to run as much ignition because they have a small bore and they just can't take a lot of fucking cylinder pressure and they blow head gaskets. So adding timing, or if you have too much timing in, especially on a single cam, they will fucking blow head gaskets fairly easily. Especially with Kristen's car, it's got a Fail Pro head gasket, so AutoZone special. So, anywho, we'll probably leave this alone. 26. So I'll just verify here. We're at 23 degrees at 7 pounds, which sounds right. I usually say like 10 pounds, 20 degrees, 20 pounds, 10 degrees kind of thing. Just as a basic base map starting point. Like I said, some cars take more, some cars take less. This is just like a basic rule of thumb for a boosted car. Yeah, so we're just going to build this up real quick. So this is a fairly aggressive ignition map to start with. But the car, being a turbo car, turbo single cam, it usually doesn't hit full boost until VTEC anyways. So, and your car's on like 20 pounds of boost.
Yeah.
So it's not going to hit anything above probably 10 until it hits VTEC. That's usually how a lot of Hondas are. So I set the ignition pretty aggressive on the low cam side just because I know the turbo isn't going to spool up to full boost until VTEC anyways. So a lot of times the ignition map on the low cam side is not as crucial. I mean, it's still crucial, don't get me wrong, but it's not like you can't really fine tune it as easily.
Yeah.
You really focus on the high cam ignition stuff when you're on a turbo car. So the high cam ignition stuff, he's only going to be in VTEC when that fucking car's floored. So we're really only going to be paying attention to the right side of the map here, which is wide open and into boost.
Yeah.
So as you guys see here, we're starting at like 35 over here. And I'll just make these all one number just to keep it simple because that's just how I do it. You can do it a different way if you want to. That's totally fucking fine. So we'll just set all these at like 35 just to like make the map look better. God damn it, I keep fucking left clicking.
No, you hit the right side button. There you go.
Set these at 35. And then when we're coming into it here, we'll set it at 30. And then at 1 pound of boost, we'll set it at 28. And then we'll work off of that 28 number and pull a degree per pound. To make this look a little bit better, we can smooth these out.
Ooh.
So it'll
looks good.
35, 32, 30. What smoothing does on Hondata is if you have 35 number here and a 30 number here, and you interpol or smooth that area, it's going to put this. It's going to split the difference.
Yeah.
And it does the same thing on fuel. So if you have a fat chunk of fuel somewhere, like say if you have a fat chunk of fuel right here, and you can see like the numbers are darker in here, and you can see it on the map if we pull up the 3D map here. You'll be able to see a hump.
Yeah, right there.
So you guys can see maybe you'll be able to see it. You can see like right in here, you can see it has a bump in the map. you know, kind of a big one. So to get rid of bumps and stuff like that, you would literally just go through and you would smooth out the area that we have the bump in. So we would smooth it, and I would interpolate it, and it kind of clears up that bump. So that's just kind of what I would do there. We'll just undo that shit for now because we're just messing around.
Just
messing around. Yeah.
Just messing around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then when I tune the low cam side, I always tune low cam first up to like 6,000 or 7,000 RPM. I'll tune the low cam side. And then once the low cam map is completely dialed in, I honestly just copy the low cam fuel side of things and I paste it to the VTEC side. And I add, depending on the setup and depending on what cams and turbo size and all that kind of stuff, I add 20, 30, 40% onto the VTEC side. And then smooth out VTEC in the higher RPM, because usually in the higher Rs, it's going to want to pull fuel out. I'm literally just babbling right now, but I don't really care. You guys like tuning shit, so here we are. So anyways, back to the high cam ignition things. We're at 28 degrees at 0 pounds. At 4 pounds of boost, we're going to run, we'll run like 25. This is like super conservative shit, but like I said, I tune ignition extremely conservative on Hondas because, I don't know, 5 horsepower, fuck it. On a turbo car, like, I'd rather add a pound of boost than add a degree of timing. I'd rather keep the timing really soft and add boost instead of the other way around.
Would
like,
you say,
keep the boost low and add a lot of timing.
Would you say you keep the timing out of it?
I usually, yeah, I would say that I usually keep the timing out of it. Just because, like I said, Hondas don't really, I mean, they do, but not as drastically as like a V8. You know, like my Mustang, you put a degree in it, it fucking picks up a tenth.
No.
You put a degree in your car, it would probably lose a tenth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. And I'm not like some expert tuner. This is just what I've been doing for a long time, and it works. So, if you can do it better, that's fucking totally fine. So 16 pounds, we're at 14 degrees, 22 pounds. And we'll just probably level this at 10.
What is that? I'm going to be hitting...
Because you don't usually want to run... On E85, you don't usually ever want to run less than like 15 or 10 degrees of timing.
Okay.
So, no matter what the boost level is, you don't want to have less than like 10 degrees of timing in it, otherwise you're literally just going to make a lot of heat. The thing is, too, is less timing actually makes more heat in the exhaust.
Okay.
Just like when you two-step and shit, when you pull all that timing out of it on the
Yeah.
two-step, it does the same thing. It creates a lot of heat, it gets the turbo ripping, and it fucking shoots fireballs. Mm-hmm. Because no timing actually makes the fucking explosion happen way when the piston's way down here, and you have all the fire getting pushed out, and not actually fucking... Okay, I said that wrong.
Donut Media has a great video.
On timing?
No, on timing, but on the way two-step and shit works. Like,
yeah, so like, instead of when the timing is advanced, the piston's going to be traveling up, and it's going to be lower in the stroke if you have more timing in it when the spark plug lights. So what happens is you need to have the compression come up.
Yeah.
And have the explosion, the complete explosion, happen when it's traveling downward. Because if you have the explosion happen too soon, it's going to fire and it's going to push back down on the piston when it's still traveling up.
And
that's what detonation is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you have a detonation issue, which can be from shitty fuel because the fuel burns too fast. That's why E85 works really good, because it burns slower. And when you have a slower burn, it's not going to have a full combustion until the cylinder's all the way up at the top, and then it's going to just explode and push that piston down as hard as it can.
Yeah.
Which is how you make power. Yeah. So, it's a fucking drinking game. Some dude commented and he's like, oh, new drinking game. Drink every time Hunter says,
Is that vinegar? Sounded like a Wookiee right there.
A Wookiee. And sometimes guys will be like, "Oh, you need to give it more timing as the RPM increases." That is like a thing that works with V8 stuff. Hondas don't care as much. I just run the timing flat on Hondas most of the time. I don't know. So anyways, timing is pretty squared away to start with. We'll probably leave it at this and never touch it.
Yeah, probably.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the map sensor and we're going to go to replacement. And he's got a GM3 bar. So we're going to go down to GM3 bar.
GM3 bar is not an option, so you got to run Motec.
Is it the same thing?
I think so. It was running fine.
Okay, well, we're going to run a Motec 3 bar, I guess. We're going to disable the knock sensor. And that's it. And then boost cut, we're going to set that fucker at like 25 pounds.
25?
You want higher?
Yeah, 30.
Okay, 30. Just because we know Christian's car, we know that it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Whatever.
Oh yeah, the fucking 3 bar can only read like 28 or something.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Hondata has the boost cut cold, 0. Until, we'll run it at like 2 pounds until you warm up.
Okay.
And then we'll go to fuel injectors. And Christian has the
HunterTuned.
The HunterTuned normal style decaps. These injectors right here, normal style decapped. We always run RC 750 cc dead times. And it works good. So we typed in 750 for the injector size, and we did the injector dead times right here, RC 750s. And then we'll go to fuel trim.
Right next to it.
So this car's on E85, so the overall trim is naturally going to want like 30 or 40%. We'll start at 30, and it might need more than that. And what the overall fuel trim does is it actually takes the number 1 and number 2 fuel table here, and it adds 40 or 30 or 50 or 80 or 100 million % to the table. Okay. So instead of, you can do it 2 ways. You can take the whole table and you can add in 20 or 30%, or you can go to the parameters and the fuel trim, and you can go to overall trim and add in 30, 40, 120 fucking 8 jillion %, and it'll add that 8 jillion % from the overall to the normal whatever. So another thing we'll probably have to fuck with on Christian's car is the cranking base, to get that dialed. Because,
no, it was perfect on
sometimes the fucking decaps, they have a little bit a tricky time starting, which could be that the dead times are not perfect.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they just don't like to be cranked up so hard. So sometimes you'll have to play with the cranking fuel trim. Sometimes you'll have to play with the cranking base pulse, depending on what the car wants, if it's too rich on startup or too lean on startup. Yeah, so cranking stuff we'll fuck with later if it has to. Full throttle shift we don't use. Closed loop we can turn off. Closed loop disabled. So we are running an open loop. We'll disable the O2 heater on the car because he doesn't have that. VTAC we will turn off for now because we are going to be tuning the car up through the RPM instead of
giving it all right away.
We're not going to give it VTAC right away until we have the low cam dialed in first. That's why I told you guys earlier I tune the whole low cam side, and then I'll copy it over to the high cam and add fuel into it, and then taper the fuel out in high RPM wherever it needs it. So yeah, VTEC's off. Rev limiter we're going to have to set a lot lower because this is an ITR map. We're going to set Christian's at 7200 because it's a single cam with a Y8 crank.
It is.
7200 is about as high as I like to go. 75 maybe, but we'll play with it at the track if need be. We can also set up your burnout rev limiter, which is cool.
Biggie was saying that we should set it like 78.
That's a little too high. Power reduction too. This is the rev limiter table, so like you can set the how hard the rev limiter hits, how early it hits. If you can have it set earlier, like a little bit earlier than 7200 or a little bit later than 7200, I usually just leave the activation right in the middle. The power reduction I usually leave in the middle or closer to none, because you don't really like having a lot of power reduction on the rev limiter, because it's actually kind of hard on the car when you have a lot of power reduction. Like say you put this at maximum, it will literally like cut the car completely off when you hit the rev limiter.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is actually harder on the car than it having not so hard of a rev limiter. If it has a light, soft rev limiter, it will not hurt the car as much. A hard rev limiter is really hard parts too, because it's kind of like detonation, where it's like it just cuts everything off when it's like mid-stroke, ready to fire, boom, kind of thing. So I usually set that like quarter of the way up.
We don't see much limiter besides a two-step.
Mm-hmm. And the rev limiter type, you can do fuel and ignition. I usually just leave them just at fuel, because fuel and ignition sounds badass, but it's actually really hard on the car. We'll probably put it at fuel and ignition because we're badasses, but like I said, if you want to have your fucking shit live, don't put the rev limiter at fuel and ignition, even though it sounds cool.
And don't maximum fuel and ignition. Bad idea.
Right. So anyways, that's the rev limiter shit. We'll go to protection here, and we'll turn this fan on. So on Hondata, under the protection table, you can do radiator fan override, which is pretty much just going to tell the ECU to kick the fan on at whatever temperature you tell it. I usually turn these fuckers on at like 180, 185. We'll do 185.
187.
And then, okay, sure, 187 is fine. We'll do 187, Christian. You happy? Oh, it turned to 188 on you.
Oh, you motherfucker.
Okay, so anyways, and then it turns off at 30 miles an hour. So if you're rolling down the road, you don't need the fan on.
Huh?
Yeah, and then overheating protection, I usually set these fuckers at 215, 220, because, yeah.
12.5?
So, yeah. Anyways, okay, that's the protection and the fan and the override for the radiator fan. Shift light, we don't run that shit. We might on Christians, we'll see. Idle table is another thing that's probably going to have to be played with on Christians. I always start at the normal, right in the center here of the idle air control duty cycle.
I am going to let you know that I had to put mine like there.
To get it to idle low?
Yeah.
You can also play with timing, though. That's another thing.
Yeah.
So if the car is idling high at the normal setting here, you can either do a few things. There's so many different ways to tune cars, guys. It's ridiculous. We're just like going through random shit. But idling, I always start at normal. And if the car idles high, you can either pull idle air control duty out of it, or you can pull timing out of the idle, or you can just take under the hood and set the butterfly lower. But depending on where the throttle stop is, it might already be maxed out, depending on the setup. So yeah. So minimum idle speed here is 850. That's what it's going to try to target. And then you can see here idle speed versus coolant temperature. We're also going to set the lowest point at 850 instead of 700 here. So these are all going to be 850.
And I hope I never get to 302 degrees like the dude at the track did.
Oh yeah, there was a Mustang at the track. Fucking spilled its guts all over last week. 300 degree coolant temp. He just left the fucker idle for like 2 hours.
Yeah. While we were in the staging lane.
Yeah.
And it finally blew when he was the next one to go.
Yeah, like blew his fucking radiator was.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
So
he was pissed.
That's going to be it, I think. We're not going to touch any fuel compensation stuff because this stuff is usually really good. I don't usually touch a lot of it. Sometimes I'll play with the air temperature stuff a little bit, and wherever there is a 0 is usually where the car is going to run. So usually a typical intake air temp is around 0 at 110 degrees. Sometimes at 60, I'll set it at 0. Depending on how the car is acting, sometimes I play with these, sometimes I don't. The water temp compensation stuff, usually after like 100 degrees, it doesn't want a whole lot more fuel. At 168, I usually will 0 these. But we're not gonna, just for the sake of this fucking video, we're just gonna tune the car. But this is like stuff you can fine tune. So like if you notice when the car is warming up, it's running too rich or it's running too lean, you can play with these numbers until you get your desired air fuel ratio warming up. Launch control is disabled. We'll turn that on later.
So yeah, so what is that your? What's the difference between that and I saw that there was like a burnout box option?
Yeah, burnout rev limiter.
Yeah.
So you can have a burnout rev limiter like tied into your e-brake. So you can have your two-step at fucking $4,000. Just
Okay.
just for
Yeah.
sake of the video. You can have your two-step at $4,000 and have it always on, and it'll work off of the vehicle speed sensor. So the speed sensor, it will have launch control enabled, always active, below 6 mile an hour, below 2 mile an hour, below 10 mile an hour, however you set it up. And we can actually get your car to 60 foot better by setting this maximum speed higher, which will limit the RPM out of the hole.
Okay.
So if you set your two-step at 4,500 RPM, you can have 4,500 RPM, and it'll stutter the car out of the hole so it doesn't blow the tires off until you hit certain mile an hour. So we can set this at 10, 15, 20 mile an hour and keep it down. You know what I mean? That's just like another way to kind of get the car to bite out of the hole.
So we would just set this at whatever, right? You set your launch control, whatever, and then log it, make a pass.
Yeah, and see where the car blows the tires off, if it is.
Yeah.
If you see the speed jump up like it's spinning, we can set the launch higher, or we can lower tire pressure, or we can. There's so many different ways to make cars work. It's ridiculous, but I'm just showing you guys some of the secrets that I've done. That's just a way that you can play with shit. And then if your launch is at 4,500, you can set your burnout rev limiter to the e-brake. So brake switch, which is your fucking e-brake.
Yeah.
So when the brake light's on in the dash, whatever, you'd have to wire it into the pin D2 just to make sure it works or whatever. And you can set your burnout limiter lower. So Michael wouldn't have dropped a valve if he would have set this up. Sorry, Michael. But you can set your burnout rev limiter at, like, say your normal rev limiter is 8,500.
Yeah.
You can set your burnout limiter at like 7. So it's not as hard on the car. And you're not slinging it high RPM really fast. A lot of times cars drop valves in the burnout boxes because the RPM just snaps. It snaps really fast. And when RPM snaps really fast like that, it's fucking hard on shit, man.
Yeah.
I think that's it. TPS will calibrate when we're in the car.
Yep.
You just go here, minimum reading. When the car's on, you'll hit read, and then you'll floor it, and you'll hit read again, and it'll calibrate your TPS. Ignition compensation stuff I usually don't touch. It's usually pretty good out of the box. If you have high intake air temperatures, it's going to pull timing, which is good.
That's the other thing I was going to mention. I don't have my intake air temp.
That's fine.
Okay.
We play dangerously. Most of the time, Hondas like this setup, dude, it's not going to run hot intake temps. They just don't. Unless you're running like 40 pounds of boost on a maxed out fucking turbo. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
Boost control we don't have. We just have a fucking bleed valve. Close loops off. Alright, that's it, dude. We're ready to go fucking throw it in. So we'll go plug this into the car and we'll pick up with you guys in a minute. And we'll see how this map runs. Oh, there we go. I got her. Alright guys, so we're in Christian's car now, and we just uploaded the map. So we plug the ECU in, turn the key forward, and hit the up arrow here, upload, and then it does the little green bar, uploads it. And yeah, so we're going to see if this thing runs. Make sure we don't have a check engine light, which we don't. So she fired up. It does need a little bit of cranking adjustment, like I was mentioning earlier. But yeah, no big deal. We'll mess with that stuff later. And we are running pretty rich, so we'll go right away to the overall trim, go to parameters, and go to the overall fuel trim under fuel trim there, and then just zero that back out. Alright, so now we're looking pretty good on the wideband. Everything's looking good. We will make sure under, we'll hit the lightning bolt here to data log, and we're making sure that if your map sensor is not set up right. At idle, you're going to be running over here when you should be over on the left side of the table, kind of thing. It's going to be reading less vacuum than what the car actually has. So a good way to reference too is like you can just look at your boost gauge and say this boost gauge is reading 18 to 20 inches of mercury for vacuum. We can go under the display on the Hondata, and we can just verify that we're running about 20 degrees of, you know, negative 20 for vacuum, which will match the boost gauge.
Oh, so we gotta do TPS.
Okay, so now we'll go through and we'll do the TPS stuff. We can do this with the car off, yeah, but with the key on. So, because if we were doing it, you know, yeah. So we'll go into parameters here, and then we'll go to TPS, and we'll go to read. So that's our minimum reading. My foot was completely off the gas, and now I will floor it. So the car is completely floored through the fucking floorboard.
You know what it's gonna say? 100.13. Oh, 85.
100.85. Okay, so now that our TBS is calibrated, we will go back into the cranking here. So we'll go back into fuel trim, and we will go to cranking fuel trim. We'll just try this to see if it helps out at all, and we'll just add in like 60% to the cranking. And if that doesn't do it, then we can go through and we can go to cranking base pulse, and we can actually make these numbers smaller, which will actually give it more pulse. Or less pulse or whatever. So we'll try it now. You upload that?
Yep.
We'll see how it fires back up now after doing the cranking adjustments. There we go. Car fucking fired right up.
Beautiful.
Running pretty damn smooth.
It's 75 degrees out today.
No bullshit. That's a base map, bro.
Yeah.
Decaps for the win. Right off the gate, dude. We're running pretty damn good air fuel. We might have to play with it a little bit as it warms up. It's probably going to run a little bit leaner than this, but and we do have a little bit of an idle surge, but we got to get the car warmed up first. So once the car is warmed up, then we'll be able to know more. But it does drive. It's a little lean. Low RPM is a little lean. We might have to play with that. But now, when I say low RPM, it's like the takeoff speed. So the takeoff is lean. So under takeoff is going to be like, so like idle is over in the left portion of the map here. But when we take off, we take vacuum away, but we're still at low RPM. So like from like 2 grand, we'll go to like column 5 at 2 grand. No. Up to 2 grand. Okay, and then go all the way over. Yep, and then we'll just splash in like 20%. 15 to 20. I keep it rich just so they're
200. Whoa.
Just so they're smoother. They'll be a lot smoother when they're rich. So yeah, now you uploaded that. We'll take off again. Nice and smooth there. So cruising, we're lean. We're like 16.5 air fuel here. So we'll take out some fuel cruising. Don't take it out of idle though.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
Christian took the whole map here from the top left corner. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take it from like 1600 or 1850 RPM and go over like 4 or 5 columns and then drag it all the way down. Go over one more column there to like 1800, and then we will add in 10% of fuel here. Yep. Looking dog pile chicken smile, guys. This honestly, like, I make it look easy, but it's a lot of it's just from experience. I've done so many of these cars that I know what they like. I know what to adjust a lot of the times, and like I said, it may take you guys a little bit longer to tune cars, but for the most part, I know where to play with them and where to make them happy, kind of thing. So now that we're cruising good, we're cruising perfectly actually. We'll just go through the gears, make sure the air fuel is good, rowing through the gears, and it is. So we'll try like second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear cruising and play with all of those. And then once those are all dialed, then we will move on to increasing the throttle. So as we increase throttle, we're going to go right on the map. And I'm already going to tell you it's going to be lean getting into the throttle, but we will try and see here. Yep, she's falling on her face lean, man. So what we're gonna do here is we're going to take anything from like 1800 and above, or like wherever we adjusted the cruise area. So go to the column above it. Here, nope, right here.
Yeah, this one?
Yep, and then we'll drag it all the way over and down. And we're going to add in like 35%. And we are going to go again. And there's going to be spots where it's lean and rich and shit, and we'll clean those up later, smoothing the map when we're done doing chunks. Usually I'll tune in chunks and then I'll smooth. So, you know, like I said, we started off, you know, tuning the cruising now, and now we're going to move into some more throttle. And this is just to get the car ironed out. Like, we're just adding in big chunks right now to make sure that the car is going to have fuel in it when we need it. It may not be like perfectly consistent air fuel, but it's going to have fuel nonetheless, which is what we're looking for. And once we have fuel, we can fine tune smaller spots on the map, if that makes sense.
This guy's drinking a beer outside.
Alright, so we're flooring it, and we're still lean, so we're going to have to add in some more. So coming into boost, we're not terribly lean. We're still like a 15.0 before boost, which is fine. But usually I like to taper the fuel into them. So we'll do like a 13.5 coming into boost, and then 12.5 at low boost, and 11.5 at high boost. That's usually what I do. I'm talking really fast. I'm just trying to get out as much knowledge as I can to you guys right now. Kind of blab it for all y'all. So we're gonna smooth out some of this quick. Just gonna go through and get rid of those humps and bumps and stuff, and we're gonna kind of just get everything happy and gradual and smooth. So smoothing and interplating some of the spots where we had some choppiness going on. We'll see if that gave it any more fuel, because it probably did. So just doing the interplating and smoothing out the bumps and stuff, we're down to a 13.5 air fuel, and it's a lot more consistent. So
yeah.
Now we can adjust into boost. So anything in boost right now, we're going to give it 10% of fuel. So starting at the column 10 here at 0 pounds, actually we can go to like column 8, give it some fuel right before it comes into boost too. So we're going to take that whole chunk of the map there, and we're going to add in 10%. We could start off a little richer, honestly, to keep the motor safe, but Christian's car's a beast. It takes whatever the hell we throw at it.
Pretty much.